Welcome back to the channel. This is Roberto with Full Curl Precision. So for tonight's video, I want to discuss something that I've kind of noticed is when it comes to reloading data. I've mentioned it before in other videos, but for tonight, we're going to go over this over again, is not all reloading data is accurate. And there is no such thing as a perfect program. I initially started this video off with the intent of doing like a 7 PRC versus the 6.8 Western, versus my cartridge, the 27 IBAX. And as I was going through the numbers from having put in the case dimensions off the 7 PRC and such, I noticed that they were quite generous. One thing I really don't care for is when you get reports of companies' actual data coming in from guys chronographing it, where it's considerably slower than what it is and what it's supposed to be or what they advertise. And then here's the other hard part, is when the numbers don't really match up with what's expected. Excuse me. Let me turn the camera around and I'll show you, because these numbers don't match with a lot of the videos guys have been posting about the 7 PRC. So here I am. I'm using the 175 grain AccuBond long range. It's a really good bullet. You got a G1 of 0.672, so it's a really good number for hunting. It's a really good construction bullet that's good for like whitetail, mule deer, elk, moose. A really good construction bullet. And then I'm over here using H1000, don't get me wrong, really good powder, and I'm staying inside the spectrum of the 65,000. But here it's saying you can get 3,123 feet per second out of a 24-inch barrel. The thing is, in all the videos that guys have tried Vita Vori, and they've tried H1000, they've tried all these other things, in real life, they're not getting those numbers. So this kind of ties it back into something I've always said before, is that companies will pad their numbers to make themselves look better. And so while I know it is a larger case capacity and it's reshaped, those numbers don't tend to add up to a lot of the video data that other guys have gotten on the 7 PRC. And so I'm going to go ahead and say that's not accurate. Now, are there ways to adjust this? Yes, I'm still learning the program. So I'm going to eventually figure all that out. However, that's not what I'm realistically I'm thinking that that's not a realistic expectation of that cartridge. And the thing is, there are ideal weights, there are ideal powders that you can definitely push. But realistically, I've yet to meet anyone that's achieving 3,100 feet per second with a 7 PRC. I haven't heard it. Now, there are some, adaptations to this cartridge where guys are getting, that kind of velocity, but it's not the exact 7 PRC. So maybe I did something wrong by entering the data that I did. Maybe I didn't do it right. I'll have to double check, go through. If somebody knows what I did wrong, go ahead and tell me. Here's all that. There's chamber. So if I didn't do this correctly, go ahead and correct me. I'll help me out with it. But that just doesn't seem right to me. The one thing I will say is kind of in line with what I've seen in terms of different designs, or rather I should say videos and ballistic comparisons, is this. This does seem to be pretty accurate. So if I swap this out, we're going to go with the GRT database. And for this, actually, I'm going to go to user database. For the 6.8 Western, the real ideal weight is going to be 165 to 170. The 175's a little on the heavy end. So we're going to go with the 165 grain Nosler AccuBond long range. And if we change out that powder a little bit and peel it back, we're going to go do that. It's a little too low, so let's bring this up to 65. So bring it up to 67. Okay, you got a little bit we can play with here. Let's bring it up to 68. 68.5. So 68.2. All right. According to this, 6.8 Western with a 24-inch barrel with 68.2 grains of H1000 with a 165 grain Nosler AccuBond long range, you're looking at right around 3,000 feet per second. That's actually kind of a more realistic expectation. Now, here's the thing. There are videos, and Reloading Weatherby has done videos with them shooting the 170 grains, and they're getting mid 3,000 feet per second. So there's a handful of factors. And mind you, that's a 26-inch barrel. I believe that was a Christensen they were shooting. In either case, excuse me. You know, these numbers seem to be closer in alignment with what the 6.8 Western is, as far as I've seen with videos, reloading data, different things. That's a little bit more accurate. So, you know, maybe I'm using too light of a bullet with the 7 PRC. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know it's a really good cartridge, but it just seems like something is off with there. And the 165 grain AccuBond long range is about the top, you know, is a little on the heavier side for what I'm doing. Like if I click on this, when I go to 27 IBEX, and again, some of these numbers aren't, once I get to doing some proper load data, I can adjust this a little bit. So I'm going to stick with the 24-inch barrel, and we're going to go with, let's see, let's try 63 grains. That's a little too low. So we'll go 64. And 65. So if I do 65 grains of H1000 out of my cartridge design, accordingly, I'm pushing 2964. That's exactly actually where I kind of intended to be. I've gone through it, and because I happen to design this cartridge and I've done more research into what this has a potential with, that's actually not that unrealistic. And that's based upon sea level. And what's kind of fun is being able to swap this out in different barrel lengths. So here we go. If I do 22, I'm still pushing 2895 feet per second. So right at 2900 feet per second with a 165 grain bullet. With a pretty good burn rate. 24 inch is definitely the ideal. I am going to be rebarreling my other rifle at some point, but the idea is it seems like that's a pretty realistic number. So it might be closer to 3,000, especially considering that I'm at a much higher elevation. And I'm going to be using a barrel with less rifle grooves, so she'll have less resistance, making those velocities move a little bit better. Anyway, that's what I have for tonight. It's just kind of something I observed. I'm not trying to say that, you know, my cartridge is better than the 7 PRC or anything like that. I was just kind of do a comparison, and it's just something I found interesting. And it could be also that I'm still learning the program. So don't take it like I'm bashing one or saying, oh, this is completely wild. You know, it's some big conspiracy theory. It's just, you know, some companies tend to pad numbers. It's not just one company. Many companies tend to pad their numbers to make something look better. And I'm trying to do my best to not let that be a thing for my end. So, whatever I get to do that's what it's gonna be. But realistically, 140 to 170 grain is about ideal for mine. As a matter of fact, just real quick, I'm gonna do one last one, which is the 150 grain Nosler AccuBond long range, which was already in here. Which for practical hunting ranges, like when I say practical, I mean like out to 500 yards, even 600 yards. The BC on this is really actually going to be quite good. Let's see. Actually, this is for hunting. For general hunting application, it is a ballistic tip. It is a boat tail. It is copper jacket. It is a lead core. It is solder bonded. It is an expansion. It is a pointed ogive. Straight jacket. Core features multi-core. Not multi-core. I guess none. All right. There we go with that. Yes. BC on this is going to be 0.591. That's the G1, and the G7, which I will have right here, 0.298. So, just trying to straighten out some data. Like there was a perfect example. Let me turn this around. So, this wasn't put in. This number wasn't put in for material construction, and this was completely inaccurate. They had this at a much higher BC, which it did not belong. So there's a good example. Now, with this particular bullet, H1000, I don't think is going to be may not be the idea. Well, let's play with it a little bit. Let's go to, that's already full. So let's swap out to something like, I think it's like an N550. Woo, that spiked it. Let's peel this back to 58. Maybe it's not the N550. Maybe it's the N555 I had before. Actually, no, it was a Ramshot. It was Ramshot Hunter. We're going to bring this up to 62. Nope. 61. 60.8. 60.7. All right. So here's kind of a cool one. So out of a 24-inch barrel with Ramshot Hunter, I can push it over 3,000 feet per second. That's moving fast. Especially with a BC like that, that's going to be a really flat projectile. Again, is this going to be a hunting out to, 1,200, 1,500 yards? No. I don't want it to be that. But is that going to do a tremendous number on anything within 700 yards? Yes. That bullet is a really good construction. So, yeah, that's why I'm picking all this. But again, there's going to be plenty of experimentation. I mean, here, check this out. So everything right here is all going to get tested, except for this guy. This guy can sit out of the way. But you got 150 grain burgers. You got 170 grain burgers. You got 170 grain Nosler ballistic tips. 140 grain Sierra TGKs. 175 grain Sierra TGKs. 150 and 165 Nosler AccuBond long range. Here's some Federal terminal ascents. Those are going to be included in it. Here's some 140 grain Nosler ballistic tips. So yeah, there's going to be a good variety of bullets that are going to be tested, as well as different powders. So again, I really appreciate all the support. Please like, subscribe, share, comment, and we'll talk to you again.